Welcome to this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. So a very, very warm welcome to Lauren Enders, who's joined us today. Lauren, thank you so much for making the time for us and joining us today.
So again, my name is Lauren Enders. I am a speech language pathologist by background. I work right now full-time in the schools as an assistive technology consultant specializing in augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC. I am a presenter both locally, nationally, and a little bit internationally, and that's exciting. And I'm super active in the global AAC community. So your mission is to learn that you can support your child, your students' language development. I know we have some SLPs and some parents out there. So I want, your mission today, you're all going to be AAC superheroes, and your mission today is to learn that you can support your child or your students' language development at home, in school, or anywhere. And then I hope you walk away having learned at least 2 key strategies to start using right away that maybe you weren't using before. I think it's really important to know that any frustrations you've experienced, any what you might consider to be failures that you've experienced, you are not alone. AAC, while doable by anybody, is not something we were born knowing how to implement. We're just not. And not only are we not born knowing, even for SLPs who go to school to become speech language pathologists, in many cases, we are not prepared to learn how to teach language to somebody using AAC, even though we go through a speech and language program. So not even the SLPs always know. And interestingly, many of our instincts about what we should do when we are working with an individual learning to communicate via AAC, a lot of those instincts actually are not quite right. So that's why we're going to go through some real key practices, and there are ones that tend to be ones that people get wrong. It's really important to note, and I will note this again later, that if you have done any of these things where I say, oh, that's not best practice, that's, this is recommended, not this. If you've done any of the things that are not recommended, that is okay. You are never too late in starting to support someone in applying key strategies. It is never too late. And it is okay if you have done anything that I suggest as maybe is not the best practice, because you can start from here on out and it'll be great. So teaching spoken language is something we do super naturally. Well, we do that when we have typically developing toddlers. We naturally teach spoken language. When we are teaching language to an AAC user, so through a different means, we just need a bit of help and practice to learn to teach language, and that's really the language of AAC. One of the things to really think about is that when you look at augmentative and alternative communication, we're talking about 2 terms. When we're talking about augmentative, we're talking about individuals who may have some usable natural speech, but we are augmenting that with AAC. We're augmenting that with an aided version of language, because that natural speech is just not meeting their communication needs at all times, in all environments. So there's something else needed to kind of bolster, to support their language. On the other hand, there's alternative communication, which would be using AAC because someone does not have any natural speech or any ability to use their speech. So AAC really is used for both of those. And your child, your student may fall in either one of those categories, but either way, the strategies that we're going to talk about still apply, regardless of whether someone has a little bit of natural speech, has a lot of natural speech, or not. So all kids learn language through exposure to tons of models in the language they are expected to speak, and that's key here. So we don't have a child that grows up in India, but we just expect that they'll just magically speak French. They are exposed to tons of models of whatever their native language is in India, or if they're in the US, English. We don't expect them to suddenly come out with a different language. We expect them to come out with a one that is modeled and spoken to them by those around them, by their parents, by others. So it's really no different for AAC. So learning the language of AAC mirrors how we learn language in any other language, which is through immersion. We are immersed in the language. People are talking to us. They're interacting with us. We say something, they change what they say. They are responsive. And that's no different with AAC. So then the question becomes, how do I immerse my student in the language of AAC, particularly when maybe I have no idea what I'm doing with this AAC, whether it's paper-based or whether it's a communication device on an iPad or whether it's something, something else, something dedicated. How do I immerse myself when I don't even know where all the buttons are? That is a very, very common question, and it's a source of stress for a lot of people. But again, one of the things I want to encourage throughout this presentation today is that you can do this. There's a bit of a learning curve, but it's okay if you make mistakes along the way. So the first strategy, and perhaps the biggest key strategy that we're going to talk about, is modeling. Model, model, model. And I have down the bottom, you will probably stink at this for a while. You may be terrible in the beginning. You don't know where buttons are. You hit the wrong button. You're not sure what to show, what not to show. No matter what, as long as you start modeling, it will be sure to help. And there's a number of reasons for that. One of them is that while you make those mistakes, you are teaching that AAC learner that, hey, this is hard, and you're going to make mistakes as you learn, and that's okay, because, hey, look, I'm making them too. So like I said before, we can't learn a language without being spoken to in that language. And you have a graphic here from Gail Porter, who is the creator of Pod, that we can't have input going in and expect a different output. So we can't expect all the people around us to be speaking English, for example, and then for French to come out. What we do expect is that if we want aided language, so this is the language that's produced when we are using some form of augmentative communication, if we want aided language to be coming out, we need to be putting aided language in addition to spoken language. So it's not that we just are going to model language and stop talking to our children, stop talking to our clients or students. We're going to keep on talking, but it's important that we also speak to them in the language of AAC, which means using symbols, using buttons. So I'm not sure the benefits of modeling. First of all, modeling shows how to use symbols to communicate. I often hear from parents or teachers, well, you know what? They know where every word is in that device. They know, I've seen them use it. They know where they are. Just because an individual knows where every button is, so that you could say, okay, find ball, find truck. Just because they can find it in the system and have a motor plan to know where it is, doesn't mean that they have any idea how to use that word within language. So it shows how to use symbols to communicate meaning. It helps us learn the AAC system. If we are not actually using and modeling for them, how are we going to learn the system? It helps us determine if the vocabulary is robust enough. I had an experience where I went in to support a young man who was, I guess he was about 8 or 9 years old. And he had a communication array with about 60 buttons on it, which seemed, pretty robust. But when I sat down and I started modeling, using the device to talk to him and then waiting for him to talk to me, I quickly realized it was not enough language for him. He needed more language on the screen. He was able to conjugate verbs. He was able to change verb tenses, but that wasn't available on the layout that he had. But unless I had actually used it with him, I modeled it, I watched his responses, I would have not known it was not robust enough. It validates that augmentative communication is a communication method and it's an acceptable one. It helps us find mistakes in the system. There are times where there can be a glitch, or that we could have made a mistake in programming, or there's a link that's not working. If you don't use it, it's unlikely that you will find all of those mistakes, because in many cases, the student or the child that's learning that system is not really able to tell you, hey, my go button's not going to the right place. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. So by you using it, you can identify some of the mistakes that might be in that system. It also supports language processing of the individual who's learning AAC. So not only is it showing them how to communicate with symbols, it is providing them with another input method. So you're speaking to them and they are processing the auditory information that you are speaking. But many times, our individuals who have a variety of disabilities, they also have language processing delays. So it may be that it takes them much longer to process our natural speech. And if we can provide another mode of support, visual support, using symbols, it provides that more, it provides more support in terms of processing what we are saying to them and what we expect them to communicate back to us. And it's research-based. So studies back, way back into the 80s. Yeah, I'm getting fancy. Okay, so one of the most common reasons that AAC learners do not develop communicative competency is lack of modeling. I was once asked, what do you think is the biggest barrier? Why, I think it's important for all of you to know that AAC implementation fails globally a lot. And that is not because the individuals who are learning that AAC are somehow, they don't have potential or they're not competent. In many cases, it's that there's a lack of some of these key strategies. And I think one of the biggest ones is modeling. And again, that goes back to the fact that we learn language because the people around us are modeling for us all the time in our expected language. That needs to be happening with AAC as well. So if you need a little bit of support in terms of what that role of modeling is and why it's so important, I did write an article a few years ago in Closing the Gap Solutions magazine. You can use that QR code, just put your phone or tablet up to it with the camera and it will come up. We will also make the slides available as a PDF on the Avaz website probably in a couple days. That should be up there. So should you need the slides or any of these resources, that you'll have access to them. But, the question is, so great, you're telling me I have to model, but how do I do that? What does that look like? Really, all that means is that you are talking with AAC, talking not just to your child, talking to yourself in front of them, talking to others. Self-talk is so important, and I'm going to do some modeling of what that actually looks like. So modeling is done by pointing to symbols on the AAC system while you are speaking with your voice. So while you are speaking with your voice. And you might think that it's hard, but you can do it. So we can model with a number of things. We can model with a separate communication board or book. We can, and sometimes that happens every once in a while. We have a person who uses AAC that really does not want us to touch their communication system. That happens, and we think we need to honor that. And when that happens, we need either a secondary system, which is not always possible because of cost, or we can use printouts. So we can print the screens from a high-tech device, or make a book out of it. We can use a variety of low-tech types of AAC systems to model. We might be using AAC apps on iPads like Avaz, or other apps on tablets. We might be using dedicated AAC devices, something like a Tobii Dynavox where we have, or a PRC Saltillo device where we have alternative access methods and specialized hardware and software. And we can also model with just individual symbols placed around the environment that have been printed out. But your focus, again, is just to talk and use those symbols. And I promise I'm going to show you what that would look like. So when you're modeling, it's really important to know what you don't have to do. And let me just keep an eye on my time. So let's see, we started at 7:30 at 8:15. Okay, my time. So when you're modeling, you don't have to point to every single word. You don't have to model on the device like I just mentioned. If that's not possible, then you can model on a paper copy. If you are doing teletherapy, there are ways to model where you can either put up a paper version, a screenshot, and split your screen. Or you can use software that mirrors your iPad that you're going to see me use in a few minutes, that lets you show your iPad on the screen, and then you can mirror and you can model that way. As I know many of us are supporting our, it's particularly professionals are supporting students or clients remotely right now in the age of COVID. But there are ways to model even if you are not with the AAC user. And you do not need to know where every word is. This is a learning process. You will learn along the way if you make a mistake. Now, what you're going to see me, when I modeled, I purposely did not practice any modeling. I have not used this layout in Avaz, all that frequently in the recent past. So I don't know where every word is. I certainly know Avaz. I've certainly used it, but I haven't used this layout extensively in the recent past. So I don't remember where everything is. So you will probably see me fumble a little bit, and that's a good thing. Don't worry. You do not have to point to the words you say that match every single word. So if I said, I like how you are listening to me, I do not have to point to I like how you are listening to me. I could just model I and me, or I and like. I can just pick one or two to model. And then as I get more and more practice, what you'll find is you're able to point to more and more words out of your sentences because you just learn where things are and it becomes easier. But in the beginning, that's not a problem. So just get started with just a few words in the beginning. So here's an example. Before I actually jump over to an iPad and do some modeling for you of what modeling looks like, here is an example of something that you should do, which is talking through your navigations. Teach the path, teach the motor plan. So you might say something like, if you wanted to say ice cream on the device, if you wanted to ask your child, do you want some ice cream? But rather than just quickly going through and going into ice cream, you actually want to support them in learning the path. Now, in the beginning, it might be absolutely true that you don't know the path either. So you say, oh, I'm looking for ice cream. Let's see. Well, ice cream's a food. Let's try the food button. All right, so food. Let's look at what's in our foods. Oh, wait, I see desserts. Okay, desserts. Well, ice cream's a dessert. So let's try that, desserts. There it is. There's ice cream. And then once you figure out the path, it can be really helpful for you to do it again and then to let them have an opportunity. So, okay, now I know. Let me do that again. So I need to go, let's go to my home screen. I'm going to hit the home button. All right, so I need to go to food, dessert, and then ice cream. And I'm going to show you in a minute. I just don't want to switch back and forth to the iPad too many times. So I'm going to just switch to the iPad, do all the modeling. So, okay. Important that you'll see me show also is that if you can't find a word and you are using a high-tech AAC system, whether it's on an iPad or on a dedicated AAC device, check to see if there's a search feature. In most cases, for a really high quality, robust application or device, in most cases, there will be a search feature that you can type in what you're looking for and it will show you the path. And then what you'd want to do is then review the path. Oh, okay, so there's what I have to do. Do it in front of them. Let them do it. All right, so I am going to mirror, or at least in theory, I'm going to mirror. Let's cross our fingers and hope that technology deities are looking down upon us. And let's do a new share and go to my iPad. Oh. I'm not sure if you can see my iPad. Let's see. Sorry about this, folks. So the iPad is not showing on my own screen, so it's hard to know. Let me see if I can. That's not it. Hold on. Sorry about this, folks. Let me try another method. Technology.
Yeah, reflector code is coming.
Okay, thanks, Lalitha. Let me just switch this again to reflector and see if it shows. Can you see my iPad?
Yeah, it shows a screen.
Do you see an iPad on the screen?
It's
or do you
sure
see the reflector window?
Yeah, it's a white screen.
Ugh. Folks, we practiced this beforehand.
Do you want to try something else?
I'm trying. Let's see.
Yeah, it's there.
It's there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry about the delay, everybody. We did practice that ahead of time, but technology, it can be, the best thing in the world and it can get in the way sometimes. So, all right. So here we have, I have a robust setup in Avaz. And if I were to model, so I would say, oh, guess what, everyone? I am really feeling, let's describe how I'm feeling. Let's go to our describing words. I am feeling so happy that you are here today with me to learn about AAC. I am sure that you are going to do a very good job. So what you're seeing is I'm talking, but I am not representing every single word with a tap on the device. All right, so let's clear this out. All right, let's go back home. So let's see, today we're going to learn some more ways that you can help. Let's see, where would I find help? Well, help's an action, so let's go to actions. Oh, there it is. I see it in the top row.
Help.
So you're going to figure out ways that you can help your child or your student learn AAC. So let's go back to our home button. So that's how I got to help. Okay, I go to actions and then I hit help. So, what you're hearing me do is talk through. I'm talking through what the navigations are, talking through my thought processes. Another thing that you can do, and I don't have a specific slide on this, that can be really helpful is create video models. So let's say that you wanted your child or your student to learn where the word happy was. What you could do is do a screen recording on your iPad. So I'm actually going to swipe down on the very top right side of my iPad to the control center. It's not going to let me screen record, but if you can see at the very bottom there, you should see a little circle with a solid circle inside. If that doesn't show up in your control center, you can add it. And if there are questions about that, if you think that you might want to do some recordings and you have a question, let me know when you get to the Q&A. I can't show it because I'm sharing my screen. But you would just set this to record and then go back and use your iPad as you normally would, and it would be recording what you did. And then you can use that recording for the student or the child to watch. So you could do an AAC model, a video model of this is how we get to the word happy. So happy is something that describes how we feel. So if we want to say happy, we go from our home page to describing. And then when we're on the describing page, look up there at the top, in the top row. Do you see it? Do you see that smiling face? That's happy.
Happy.
That's how we say happy. It just takes 2 taps. Let's give that a try again. So I'm going to hit my home button and we're going to go to describe and then say
Happy.
happy. And that's how you say happy. I am
Happy.
happy that you're learning to say happy.
Happy.
Happy is an important word. So, and it seems really simple and it seems really silly, but many kids, many actually individuals who are learning AAC, maybe adults, they can really benefit from watching these models and actually learn where things are. So that's something that you can do, and then you could keep them in your camera roll and have them learn through those video models. So again, what you're doing is you are modeling just some of the words alongside at the same time as your speech. So today, I hope that you can learn a lot about AAC. I want you to know that it will take time to learn. But I'm sure that you can do it. So I want to give a little tip. And a little later on, I talk about, maybe where we would start. When I am modeling AAC for someone, I typically do not have necessarily specific words. I just kind of look at the page and my eye catches a word, want, and I just make something up that has to do with want. So, I could say I glanced at want and then I just make something, oh, you know what? You know what I really want? I want. I'm hungry, so I want a food. So let's go into foods. I want a snack. And you know what I want for snack? Let's go into our snacks. Now it could be that what I would want for snack is absolutely not on this page, but guess what? They don't know that. So I would just glance at the page and I just pick something just so that I can model. You know what I want? I want a pretzel. And then another thing that I tend to do is I pretend to be indecisive so I can model more. But wait. No. No, I do not want that. The food that I want, I do want a snack. The food that I want, I change my mind.
Cookie.
Is cookie. So in that way, I got to model pretzel and I got to model cookie just by pretending that I can't make up my mind. It's really key to know it's not so much about what you're saying. It's about the fact that they are learning navigations. They are learning where things are. They are learning that it's okay to make mistakes. That's what modeling looks like. Hopefully that helps you in knowing, what that looks like, what it doesn't look like, how you can do it. So let's switch to back to my slideshow. Hope this technology works properly. And let's move my iPad out of the way for myself. Okay. And of course, now it won't advance my slides. Nope. All right, hold on one second. Sorry, folks. I'm going to pause share. Let's see if it lets me in. Nope. Let's try it this way.
You can try and escape maybe.
It escaped. That's the problem. Escape is not working.
Oh.
There we go. All right. My computer is being really finicky, folks. So hopefully that's the last time we get stuck, since it's the last time we're going to be probably swapping back and forth. I have a very full PC that is not happy with me, and I have been removing files, but apparently I've not removed enough. Okay, so a rule of thumb is that we want to expand utterances. So let's say that your child or your student pushes and selects one word. So maybe they say eat. What the rule of thumb is then that you want to model something that has 2 to 3 words. So wherever they are, if they're typically using their device, their system, and they're using one word at a time, then you want to model 2 to 3 words, because you want to help bump them up to the next stage. So if they said eat, then you might model, oh, you want to eat. I wonder what you want to eat. So then you've taken it and you're expanding that eat that they might use, and you are expanding it to 2 words with want to eat. This is a really nice, this is a part of a protocol that was developed by Dr. Jill Senner and Matt Baud, who are in the US in Chicago. And they have done a lot of research on skills that are really helpful for partners of AAC users to use when teaching AAC. So one is that you have a slow rate, so that when you are modeling, that you're not zooming around really fast, because who can follow that? 2 is that you're simply modeling, like we've been talking about, including, describing what they are doing. That's called parallel talk. Oh, I see you doing, I see you pushed the word eat, and then you push the word chip, and also self-talk. So, saying something like, oh, I feel happy, which you saw me do. I was doing my self-talk with the device, not asking them to do anything, just simply modeling what it would look like to talk about my feelings. It's not magically learned to talk about your feelings. We learn it because other people demonstrate how to do that. Well, when it's AAC, it still needs to be demonstrated. We need to demonstrate, we need to model how to talk about our feelings. So we also need to respect and reflect. So if your child comes up and says, ball, we need to say, okay, I understood what you said. Oh, okay, ball. All right, you told me ball. Huh, but I have a question. What about the ball? Do you want the ball, and modeling want and ball? Do you like the red ball? Modeling like red and ball. So you respect what they said, expand upon it, and reflect back. Lots of repetition is good. I was talking about repetition. Expansion, I was talking about expansion. And that last one that says stop is crucial. So that means that you have to stop, and you need to have them have time where they can process what it is that you've asked them. So if you have said, oh, I wonder how you're feeling today, then you need to stop. I'm just trying to gauge my time here. So we started, so are we supposed to be done in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh my. I'm not even cool. All right. Yeah. All right. So, so can you show me how you would model AAC, which I already did. All right. So which word should I model? Where do I start? So tip 1 is worry less about the words you choose and more about how much you model.
So Lauren, are you,
yep.
is your screen changing now? Because it's not changing for the rest.
Oh, it is.
Oh, it is? Uh-oh.
It is. Yep.
It seems to be stuck on the high-tech AAC, or check for a search feature screen.
It's not changing?
Yeah.
Did it change?
That's the screen it's showing me.
It's not changing at all?
No. Did you change it now? No, it's doing the same thing.
I did.
Oh.
Let's try switching back again. All right. Okay, yeah, I'm running really short. So I typically do this in an hour. So this was a pretty tall order to get through all the content in 45 minutes. So we may have to sneak a little bit into the Q&A time. And then what we can do is if there are additional questions that are not, that we can't address, you can collect them and
I'll forward it. Yeah.
Yeah, forward it to me, and then we can either post them or we can do a short little an additional Q&A that we record, which would be fine with me. But I'm just trying to get you my slides back so that you can actually see. Can you see it?
Yeah, now it's moving. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So which words should I start with? So my first tip is to worry less about the words you're choosing and more about the fact that you're just modeling language, and you're modeling it a lot, and you're not demanding use of the system. And we're going to talk about that. Tip 2 is that if you're looking for a list, there are words that you can start with, and it helps to start with words that give your child or your student control, that they learn that language has power. So words like go and stop and not and no and on and off and finished, because they can, if they say stop and you stop what you're doing, they learn the power of the word stop. So words that can give them power over you or what you do can be really good words to start with. So do you need some word lists? You can find some on Practical AAC. There's also a core words of the week section on the AssistiveWare website. I know that there are sometimes blogs, I couldn't give a specific page, but Avaz also puts up some really nice suggestions on what to do with individual words. It's important to consider that you want to be modeling phrases from pretty early on, because typically developing kids, they start combining words when they have as few as 25 to 50 words in their vocabularies. So really think about, are you modeling phrases? Are you expanding? Another common reason why AAC learners are not becoming competent communicators is we have this tendency to focus only on modeling, teaching, and teaching requesting. Requesting is important. We need to be able to ask for the things we want, but that's not what it's all about. There's more. The goal of AAC, and this is from Chris Klein, should be that you can say anything that you want to say. It isn't about telling a person what you need or want. It's about becoming an effective communicator so you can build relationships. It's really about building connections and relationships. So we want to be modeling requests, but also modeling asking questions. So, I have a question. I'm wondering, what do you want for dinner? So that they actually learn how to pose a question. All right. Model reading, model describing, model every type of a form of language. We talked about expanding a child's language already. We do this with typically developing kids. They say ball, they say, oh yeah, that's a big red ball. Let's bounce that ball. We do that normally. We need to do that with our AAC learners and do it using their systems. Another common reason AAC learners may have difficulty developing language competency is that we're prompting way too much and too quickly. We need to pause for longer than it feels comfortable. So I have to count in my head. My human nature tells me to jump in. I count for 10 to 15 seconds. If I say, oh, I wonder how you're feeling today, I then start in my head, 1,000, 2, 1,000. My gut has me jump in at 1 second. I know better. I will count to often up to 10, maybe even longer. Some kids need longer because of their processing times. So keep calm and look expectantly at them while waiting for their response. Consider that there's a difference between modeling and prompting. This is big. Prompting is the act of trying to get someone to say something. If you think about it, that's not what communication is about. Communication is not about making sure that a person says what you want them to say. Communication is about making sure that an individual can express what is in their mind. It is in their thoughts. That is not necessarily what you want them to say. So I think we have to be really careful with all this prompting, because what we're trying to do in many cases, by accident, we mean well, is we're trying to get compliance and not communication. What we want to do is teach them to have the language to be able to express what's in their mind. And we can do that by modeling all kinds of language, modeling feelings, modeling questions, modeling everything that's in that system. Okay. We can use a prompt hierarchy. This is an example from Kate Ahern. She has at the top, always use aided language. Aided language is a fancy word for modeling AAC. Always use aided language. And then the first thing you do is just create a motivation for communication. Not hand over hand, not going in, but just a motivation. Oh my gosh, I wonder which one of these candies you want. And then look. Not saying, okay, tell me which candy. Push chocolate. So this is showing you a really nice progression in a very kind of naturalistic way, then getting more and more specific to a more directive prompt. This is a really nice set of modules from Tabby Jones-Wolber. I never know if I say her name right. I'm sorry, Tabby, if I butchered it again. That gives you modules to learn how to be a better modeler and a better communication partner. If you need some inspiration, Amanda Hartman from Assistiveware has a YouTube channel where she does lots of videos where she shows what modeling looks like. You only got a little bit from me today. This is a channel on YouTube called AAC Family Fun, which I think is really clever. You know, we're looking for things to model, especially at home. It can be tricky. A lot of both kids and adults enjoy music. And what this YouTube site does is she picks songs that have lots of core words in them. And then she uses those as a playlist where you can actually model some of the lyrics that are in the song that are repetitive and are core words. So, you know, for example, if the song had the word hello in it, you know, think about the Adele song, Hello. Well, what if you were working on hello? Would that be a great way to practice using your system? Another barrier to the development of language competence using AAC is that language is presented as a demand. We need not to be doing a few things. This is from Dr. Carol Zangari. We need not to be saying, show me on your device, find the word, press the switch, hit the switch, tell me on your talker, use your words. That third one is a big one. I need to tell you, if someone can use their words, they will. It is far easier to use your natural speech than it is to use an AAC system. If they are not using their natural speech in that moment, something is likely producing a barrier to them using and accessing their speech. Things like, I know you can do it, you did it yesterday. Again, there are barriers that are inconsistent. It could be that they're in pain right now. It could be that they're having sensory overload and they cannot access the language that they had accessed yesterday for you. So just because they did it yesterday and you saw it doesn't mean that in this moment that they're able to do it. They may need that AAC. Or hurry up. Hurrying anybody doesn't really help with things. So the second strategy is talk, don't test. Focus on the interaction. Again, there are things that we need to consider that may be interfering: anxiety, anger, sensory overload, sensory needs, pain, fear, motor planning challenges, simply that they don't know where a system is. We don't know where a button is in their system or on their device. Fear, there's so many things that can interfere. Testing them, where's ball? Tell me ball, push ball. That is something we have a really big tendency to do because we're super eager to teach them. That doesn't teach though. What you're doing is testing. Interaction, bringing about connection with them so that they want to interact with you. They want to engage, they want to connect. That's what brings about language. So we can use language rather than saying, what do you want to tell? What do you want to eat? It could be, oh, I want mac and cheese. No. I want turkey. I want turkey. I wonder what you want to eat for language. Eat for language. Eat for lunch. So what you've done is you have not demanded to know what they are. You have shown that you're interested, and you're not making it such a test. So what? Okay, but my child does not know what words to use. They have no idea how to use their system. That's okay. What you do naturally with toddlers is attribute meaning. Yeah, so we're really running low on time. There's a video. I'm going to include the video in the link that I put up on the website. I want you to see what this, you can find this, The Art of Attributing Meaning. You can Google this video. It's really excellent, from Dr. Caroline Musselwhite. I typically present this in a 1 hour, and I was trying to smash it, but then between the introduction and between a couple little tech snags, we lost a few minutes. So I do think it's important that you watch this video. You can Google it, you can message me, and I can send you a link, and it will be part of the handout that's posted on the Avaz website. So attributing meaning, what that is if a child puts their hands up, you say, "Oh, you're putting your hands up. I think that means you want me to pick you up." You're making that assumption. I mean, they could be raising their hand for some other reason. We can't profess to know what's in their head, but we can just connect. So, "Oh, I asked you a question and you smiled. So I'm wondering if you were thinking, yes, I agree with that." You could say yes. We're not making an assumption. So words like "I'm thinking," "I wonder," or "maybe," what those do is those encourage communication, but they don't make the assumption that you know what's in their head. So if you said, "Okay, tell me, I want pizza," we don't actually know if they want pizza. They may look like they want pizza, but how do we really know? We can't get in there. So "I'm thinking," oh, you're reaching for the pizza. "I'm thinking you're hungry and you want pizza." And you would be modeling keywords out of that statement. So this is, again, Chris Klein saying that if we're going to have success with people who use AAC, we need to create opportunities for them to interact with people without it making it seem like work. It needs to feel like connection and interaction. The AAC Coach on Facebook is a great way to find fabulous tips about AAC, and all of her handouts are accessible on the AAC Coach Files Facebook page. So this was your mission, and you can complete this mission and support your child or your student's language development by modeling a whole lot, by talking but not testing your student or your child, by pausing and attributing meaning. And again, attributing meaning is that's just the way that you're teaching. They may not know what something means, but if you say if they start to kind of frown, you could say, "Oh, I see you frowning. I think maybe that means that you feel sad." So you have attributing meaning to their frown. Whoops, I'm hitting my mic. So pausing and attributing meaning is key. So really important to remember, even superheroes make mistakes. It is totally okay for you to make them too. Clearly, in what I've given you in a little less than an hour, you're not going to be an expert. But if you can remember some of these tips, I have posted other more extensive resources on modeling on my social media sites on attributing meaning. There is more information. Use this as a starting point to think about, okay, these were the key strategies that she told me to remember. I need to model. I need to stop testing so much. I need to be careful with my prompting. All of those things are going to be really, really helpful, and you will get this. So you'd be superhuman if you didn't make those mistakes. So waiting is hard, but the payoff will be worth it. Language learning will take time. So try not to expect that tomorrow or the next day or even next week or perhaps even in 6 months or a year that your child or your student will be exactly where you're hoping for them to be. Language learning takes time. And these were some graphics for, these go into a lot, the strategies that I already talked about and some additional strategies. So these are available as well. And there's a partner strategies booklet. So again, this will be in the handout that gets posted on the Avaz website. So we only have a couple minutes for questions and answers, and I do apologize about that. We can do some additional time, but we have a few minutes. So let's get to that.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Lauren. I'm just going ahead with the questions.
Yeah.
So I'll take the ones that are more relevant because some of them are not very relevant to modeling. So one of them, Hilary Frank says, what do you suggest when kids are saying a word repeatedly over and over, not functional meaning? And 2, how do you suggest the best steps to support parent carryover and buy-in to use and model the device without being overwhelmed at home?
Okay. So the thing that sometimes is called stimming, where they're just pressing something over and over and over and over again. There's a couple of things you can do. One is if you can manage to get really, really exciting activities that are really engaging to talk about, that often does diminish. Now I wouldn't say that it stops completely. And they may do it when they are, having some free time, and they may continue to do it somewhat. There is another thing that you can do on many high-tech systems, which is you could increase the hold down time on the button in some systems, where it takes a little bit longer for it to activate. It depends on what system you're using, or based upon variety of. Lalitha, can you change hold down time in Avaz? Can you change it so that you have to hold down a little longer?
That can be done through the iPad settings itself.
Okay. I know some have it built into the app. So through the iPad settings, you can actually go in and you're basically affecting the response time so that it requires you to hold down the button a little bit longer to get it to speak. And that can help with the kids who like to hear it, because it's not going to speak so quickly. And then the carryover, parents can be really overwhelmed. Life is really hard. They've got a child with a disability. I would say try to break off little chunks in something that is really engaging. So find out from those families something that's really important in their family. If in their family it's really important for their nightly dinner time ritual, that they always sit around the table and have a nice dinner, then maybe dinner time is the time that say, just focus on this. Just focus on having the system out and modeling during dinner. One like dinner, for example, you could print screens, take the home screen of the device, and everybody gets that as a placemat. And all the people at the table get that home screen, and they model on their paper version, and the child or the adult AAC user, they have their device at the table and they get to use their device.
Yeah. Thanks for that. The next one, Ritesh Lal. He says, I'm totally confused where to start modeling. My child plays with icons instead of you actually using it, how it should be used. So how do I teach him that?
Okay.
That was attributing me.
That's a really good question. It's okay that they're just he or she is just pushing buttons. It may be that at this point there isn't a real big understanding of what any of those words mean. Even if the child can figure out what those, what they are and where to find them, may have no idea how to use them as language. So in starting modeling, really just, you can start with the main screen. So start with the home screen and pick, I'm looking at the home screen and I'm looking at the word want. That's what I'm looking at the word want. And I could just, that one day, I am just going to model want as many times as I can. Do it in my own thoughts. So, guess what? So I'm talking to my child. Guess what? I want a snack. I want a snack because I'm hungry. I want some cheese. Yeah, I want some cheese because I like cheese. Or want, I want to take a nap. I'm so tired. So it might be easiest in the beginning when it's very overwhelming to glance at the front screen, pick a word that that you would want to model, and then just focus on that one word initially until you get more comfortable with incorporating that word as much as possible. Think about how many ways you could say want. And remember to use your own thoughts. Not so much, okay, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? You're modeling your own thoughts. Oh, I want to have some snack. I want a cookie. No. I want a graham cracker. So I'm not even asking them to do something. I'm doing the modeling. Then once I model a few times, I could look to the child, look to that adult using the AAC system and say, I wonder what you want. And that's where you stop. And then you look at them. After you said, I wonder what you want, you stop and you look and you wait and you count in your head. If they don't do anything, that's okay. If you've counted 10 seconds and they don't do anything, you'd say, oh, well, you know what? I'm betting I know you like crackers. I'm betting you want some crackers, or maybe you want some crackers. You can model it and then move on. Don't worry if they don't do it. That's a key. I think people are so hung up on the fact that, well, I modeled it and they didn't do it. This is a process. You may have many, many times where you model something and you don't get a response. That's okay. Think about your infants, typically developing infants. We're talking to them all the time. We're not getting a response for quite some time, but we don't stop talking to them.
Yeah, great. Can we continue for some more time if you're okay with that, Lauren?
Yep.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so Wilreen Vaz says, I agree with modeling, but at the same time, wouldn't that be confusing semantic formation? Wouldn't that be confusing sentence formation, basically their syntax?
No, so you are speaking full sentences. So what you have to think about is the way that children develop language. Typically children, first they say ball and then they say want ball. They develop in stages and many of them don't come out, when they start speaking, it's not automatically moving to full sentences. So kind of extending from initially, modeling just a couple words to then modeling more and then modeling, all the rest of the small function words, the verb conjugations, eventually getting to that, they will do just fine. It's completely overwhelming. It's overwhelming to us as people who are modeling, and also in many cases to the individual who's learning to have every single word modeled. We need to kind of break things into chunks. In many cases, really try to think back to the way that toddlers develop language. But it does not, you're always going to be using the correct sentence structure with your natural speech as you're talking. So if I say, oh, I want a cracker, and I only modeled one, I said it correctly. I said, I want a cracker. And then eventually I might model, I want a cracker, and I just left cracker off. And then even later I might say, I want I want a cracker, but I only modeled I want and cracker. And then further on, then I might start modeling everything. I want a cracker. But every time I'm speaking it correctly. So, in my experience and in talking to other, AAC clinicians kind of around the US and even, some people globally, I've never heard any, kind of fallout or negative consequences of modeling just keywords initially and then building up to more, complete sentences as they're ready.
Okay, thank you. So Tasneem says, can you model for children with cognitive disabilities? How do you model?
Absolutely.
How
And
do
it's
you model?
modeling the same, it's the same way.
Hmm.
It's the same, it's exactly the same way. You know, we can be really, really surprised. So one of the things that we certainly know about kids with cognitive disabilities is that it's pretty unpredictable what they might know and be able to do. So we have to presume they have the potential to learn, and we have to teach them the same way we would teach someone who is not diagnosed with a cognitive disability or a cognitive impairment. I've watched many videos from, master AAC clinician Gail Van Tatenhove, who has largely worked with adults with cognitive impairment, with, cognitive disabilities, who, if you saw their IQs, they probably would be, in that lower range, yet she modeled language for them the same way she would model for anyone else, with all these same procedures, modeling, expanding, moving up as they develop more. And I have seen many, many videos of individuals with, fairly significant cognitive impairments who are not only learning to use an AAC system, but are able to, for example, there's one video called "The Power of Core Vocabulary: Life Saving" from Gail Van Tatenhove on YouTube. And what it shows is a man with a cognitive impairment who has learned to use a robust core-based system, and he was able to document his own abuse. Now, was it perfect sentence structure? Was it perfect grammar? It was not. But was it sufficient to express what he needed to express? It was. So I think that's the other thing, is that, we need to focus really heavily on the message. Clearly, we want to speak proper syntax and grammar, be teaching as much as we can, but really be focused on, are they able to get their message across? And if it's not perfect grammar, it's really okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next one from Vidya Matalai. Do we need to couple the real objects along with models to enhance better association? Like, I want cookies, and should we have cookies?
Well, I think that could, in general, that probably could help. Because you're just kind of solidifying what that is. Oh, I want a cookie. In some cases it might be distracting. If you have a child who is absolutely obsessed with cookies, and as soon as they see a cookie, that's pretty much all they can think about is getting that cookie in their mouth, then you may not want to. But it's certainly, it can support to have it, but I don't think you have to always have the object. When you think about, when you're talking to toddlers, you do not always have an endless array of objects to pair with every word you use. So I don't think that you have to do that. If you happen to have the object around and you can show it and talk about it and they can feel it, and, multimodal instruction is wonderful. But I don't want you to feel like you have to always have an object. And even more so, remember that a lot of the words we're teaching are not, object. They cannot be represented with an object or a picture. Many words are abstract, like something like feel or want. So with those, we would never be pairing anyway. So while my answer is yes and no, you can absolutely pair with real objects. It's not going to hurt. It might be a nice support, but you don't have to.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Next one from Rupali Nair. For a 5-year-old child, how many buttons do we need to add on the device? And should we concentrate on sentence formation or just one word initially?
So that's a great question. So one of the biggest mistakes I see made is too few buttons. What you have to remember, the fewer buttons on the screen, the less there is to model. Remember, what you don't model, they're not going to learn. If it's not there, you can't model it. So the rule would be, consider their vision and their fine motor skills. And you want to give them the most buttons that they can visually see okay, and that they can access with whatever access method they're using, whether it's direct selection or scanning or eye gaze or whatever kind of system they're using. But if it's, let's say that it's Avaz and they're using direct selection, they're touching with their finger, you want the most buttons that they can actually accurately see and touch. If it seems overwhelming to have all those buttons showing in the beginning, there is a feature where you're able to hide buttons and it blanks them out. That's really important, because if you just make the buttons bigger, then when they're ready for more buttons, or when you sense that when that's your perception that they're ready for more, you change the locations of the buttons as they were when you change to something with more buttons. So we want them to, just like we don't, if you have a cell phone, you wouldn't want the icons to move on your cell phone because you've learned a motor plan. We do not want the buttons to move on a student's or an adult's communication system, because they learn where they are. So rule is the most buttons they can see and access without, accidentally hitting the buttons around them. And then the next question was modeling sentences versus words. And I think I kind of covered that in that, figure out where they are. If your child or your, if you're or your child or your student, if they are just using one word, then, you're going to still speak your sentences, but you would model like 2 words. So if they're typically saying eat or want or go or, cracker or goldfish or whatever they're saying, and it's typically 1 word, then you want to be using 2 to 3. So you'd be modeling something like, oh, you grabbed your goldfish, and you would attribute meaning and say, maybe you want to eat that goldfish. So, kind of go based upon where they are and then just add a couple of words to that. But again, you do not need to be modeling full grammatical sentences with every button when you're modeling on the device. You can just speak the sentences correctly, but you can just model just a couple of the words like you saw me do. So I was speaking, yet I was only selecting 1 or 2 of the words out of what I was saying.
Okay. Thanks for that, Lauren. So I think we are almost, so we'll take a couple of last questions, which is, Leslie Matthew says, and Afshan Begum, similar questions. For low functioning children, will using symbols help, or is it ideal to use pictures? Photographs.
That's a good question. So now, if it kind of depends, you can use photographs, and I think there are some things that I might defer to photographs for in general. So people, to use their photograph as opposed to some kind of cartoon image that kind of looks like their hair color or their skin color. We would want to use a photograph for that. If it's like a specific toy or a specific song or something like that, I would say certainly use photographs for that. However, when it's something like a describing word, an adjective like happy, or when it's something like a verb, like go or stop or something like that, in many cases, the symbols are easier because they're not really picture producers anyway. It's not easy to find an actual photograph that represents something that's abstract, like want. So a mix of photos for things that are easy to represent as a photo, and symbols is just fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think we are 15 minutes, we've overshot.
I'm sorry.
I guess, no, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, our parents have been around, so many of them are still around. So I guess we'll do the rest of them later. Maybe we'll send it to you.
And like I said, and I will be happy if you wanted to do like a half an hour, an extension of the Q&A that we go on one morning, or for you.
Okay,
it's 5
that
o'clock.
sounds good.
I'll be happy to do that as well.
The same time, maybe we can.
Yeah, that's fine.
More. Yeah, that sounds
good. This time works for me because it's
before
before work.
Okay. Yeah, great.
Yeah, so I appreciate you all attending. Again, I'm Lauren Enders. You can find me kind of all over social media. I hope that you were able to pick up one or two strategies and perhaps kind of one or two things that maybe were different than the way that you were thinking about doing things before. I realized that in, a little less than an hour that I'm not going to make you an expert, but I'm hoping that I kind of planted some seeds, not testing your child, just interacting with them, modeling. I mean, that was really the biggest takeaway that I wanted you to get. So I'm hopeful that I was successful. And thank you again for attending.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was a
You're
really
welcome.
useful session and a lot of useful tips for parents to take back home.
Okay.
So thanks so much, parents, for joining us. And I hope you found this useful. So I'll close the session. There's also going to be a poll that I would be sharing with you, and there would be a survey that I request you to please participate in. Just launching the poll now. How likely are you to recommend this webinar to other parents? So please, parents or professionals, please do answer it quickly. And once we close the session, there will be a pop-up that would ask a few questions, just 2 to 3 questions that it'll take a few seconds for you to answer. And the feedback is really important for us because we would know whether we can bring back similar sessions for you again. Some more for completing the poll. Can you please complete the poll, those who haven't? I'd like to close it. So Wilreen says, thanks for a beautiful presentation. I guess it's fine. We overshoot time when we get to learn something. Yeah.
Oh, I really appreciate that. One of my challenges is that I can speak literally for days on AAC. So, an hour segment, an hour segment when, that's even a little bit less than an hour when then it's supposed to be 45 minutes. And then there was a couple tech things. So I appreciate that understanding and willingness. So that was a nice comment. Thank you.
She's asking, shouldn't we go ahead we are fine with it because technical glitches were not in their hand. Yeah. We are absolutely fine if it's okay with Lauren. Would you want to go ahead or do you prefer to do
a few more minutes, do you mean?
Yeah, to complete the question answers. Do you think you want to take them now or?
You know what? I don't think I can because
she has a session.
I actually have work in 10 minutes.
Oh boy. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, let me see. I think I have a 9 o'clock meeting. I do. I have an IEP at 9 o'clock. That's one of the interesting things about, I'm always kind of juggling my regulars work in the schools job and then my try to spread the word about AAC to people around the world second sort of job.
Yeah.
I guess. My chosen job. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we really appreciate your sparing this time for us, Lauren. It was a wonderful session.
Oh, thank you. And like I said, just let me know if you want to do an additional, it seems like people wanted a little bit more Q&A. So I'm happy to do that.
We've not had enough of you as yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be happy to schedule one more.
Yeah, that's fine. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm ending this poll, folks. And we'll be ending the session. So we've had a great response. So 98% have said it's either very likely or extremely likely to have your session again. So thanks so much, Lauren, for this amazing session today.
You are most welcome.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, folks, for joining. Bye-bye.